Hi, welcome to Dice Control Dojo. I'm Phil and I practice every day and share my tips so we can all get better at the casino. Okay, today we're starting our series on the fix. This video is strictly on the arc. So what we're talking about today is only about once you release this dice. I don't care if they're separate, one ahead, one apart. We're looking at just the angle, just looking in the air. I'm not looking at where they land or how they react. I'm just looking at the actual air time of these throws. Okay, so what are we talking about here? A perfect throw, for me, what I'm trying to do is to get a 45-degree angle. So the dice come up and land at the target at a 35 to 45 degree angle. So what causes it to not do the 35 to 45 degree angle? And why do I want that? So a 35 to 45 degree angle will mean that I'm going to have a little backspin, right? It's going to go in the air at the right angle, right about here. So when it lands, we're trying to make a nice, easy, soft landing, so it goes. If it comes in too high, it bubbles down and maybe not hit the back wall, which is bad. If it comes in too low, it could bang too hard. If it comes in too low and you hit your target, that's way too fast, and you're going to hit the back wall and the dice are going to go everywhere. So we want to find a fine line on getting that 35 to 45 degree angle and there's a lot of stuff involved with this. So let's break it down. All right. So what happens if it's too high? If it's too high, that means two things. Your grip was too tight. You didn't relax on your throw, and you released way later than you wanted to. You might have in your brain go, this dice isn't releasing, so I'm going to let my thumb loose to let it go, but it's already way up here. The dice should come out centrifugally, right? So when you're doing your throw and you're looking at the ledge, the last thing you're doing, right, is making sure your pressure on your thumb is the least pressure as possible. So when you release, hopefully it's releasing in this zone right here. Not releasing on the upswing way up here and not releasing way down here. It's going to be in this zone somewhere around here that the dice come out automatically on its own in my throw. So if it's not, then maybe I was gripping too tight, so I got to relax that. So the first thing you got to look is your grip. Was your grip too hard? The other thing is, what if your throw is too fast? All right, so your arm speed should be the same every single time. And we don't talk a lot about arm speed, but in an arc, that's the most important thing. So this speed, right, this should be the same every single time you throw. You shouldn't be whipping it like that, and you shouldn't be going too slow like this. Now, what happens when you go slow? When you're going too slow, it's usually an indication on your last throw, you whipped it. So you're trying to calm down. And I don't suggest that. What do I suggest? It's going to be like this on 50 more videos. Back to basics. Take your time. Go back to your muscle memory and your basic throw strategy. Come back to it. All right? Make sure you're doing the basics. Don't think me, just throw. So if you overthink it, sometimes that could be the problem. So we're talking about too high. Two issues with it. Speed, you got too high because your arm whipped, all right? Or your grip was too tight and you gripped it too hard. So look at my grip. If I'm gripping too hard, it didn't even hit the back wall, because at one point I'm right at that area between here and here that I'm realizing the centrifugal force is not going to release it. So I move my thumb or I move my fingers. to let it go, and it goes straight up. Okay? So get back to basics with that. What do we do if it's too low? Okay? What causes it to be too low? Well, it could be that you're too soft on your thumb, right? And it snuck out ahead of time. Did you see that? So you still have to make sure you're doing the same throw each time. What's the answer to that? Back to basics, of course, but just realize that you could have had too soft of a toss. I don't think there's ever a time I can be too light on my thumb, but what would happen is if it's this light and it's so light that when you go to your backswing, you're releasing, maybe your thumb's lifting way early because it's so light, but so that may be a thumb issue. So too light of a throw, or the speed is too slow, that you're so slow, you know, you can go so slow that the dice with the centrifugal force is going to just roll out. So you got to make sure you get back to basics on your throw. That's going to happen. I'm going to slip. I've done it even in practice, even on the tables, that I come up here like this and I go, whoops, because either my thumb lifted or I threw it too soft or my fingers just moved. Whatever the case is, the too soft a throw, the too low of a throw is usually an indication of speed, too slow of a speed, or your thumb pressure isn't exactly like you normally practice it. So what are the two issues with the angle? Arc too high, you're gripping too hard, or you're throwing too hard. Too low, you're gripping too soft, your thumb may be moving, or you're throwing too slow. You know, do you ever feel like when your hips go in and move it because you're like trying to throw it just gently? That shouldn't ever happen. You keep a good center balance, you keep a good fix, so none of this is involved. It's just your arm. That may be another issue. If I know people, you see their hips slide like this, have you did that at home? Well, then fine, but if you're not, and all of a sudden that created at the casino, you got to stop it, get back to basics. So you throw too high, you're gripping too low, you're too loose. So how do you fix it if you're doing it on a routine basis, right? One thing, I want to have it at exactly a 45-degree angle. I use Mojo in the dojo to help me out, and then I use my stick to try and make sure that when I'm throwing, I'm getting the angle over where I want it to do. So if I'm nervous about it and I'm constantly not having the right angle, or it's going too soft for me, I can use that as a way of making sure that my dice will do the right angle. But in essence, this is great, but in essence, let's break down what happened and how to fix it. Was it too soft a throw, or am I gripping too hard or too soft? That's a fine line. The only way of fixing that is getting back to basics and making sure that all of these throws are the same. Consistency. So recognizing that if the throw goes down too low, there's two issues. You released your thumb, you threw too slow. You didn't throw your normal throw. If it goes up too high, you're gripping too hard, or your shoulders are spinning too hard and it's going straight up. You know, you're whipping it and you're holding that so high that you release your thumb again. A lot of these things are going to be that you released versus centrifugal force. So you got to recognize those issues and be able to correct it. Now, when you're on the table, you can correct it immediately by recognizing up or down, and it's like, hey, what do I do? Get back to basics, right? Breathe, come in, visualize where you're going to go, pick your landing zone, and just make sure you're not thinking, I'm just thinking in the landing zone. so that I throw that speed the exact same way I did for my 10,000 throws. So hopefully this video got you where you wanted to be in making sure that you recognize too high of an arc or too low of an arc, so you can have the perfect arc each and every time. Join me tomorrow when we're going to talk about when one dice is too high or the one is too low. What causes that? And as always, with every video, the best strategy, because I don't talk about betting strategies at all, but when I do, I know the best one is to throw for a long, long time.